The line that wouldn't move. The security app buzzed at 5:14 a.m. 3 times. Sharp. Insistent. I sat up in bed like I'd been cattle prodded, reached for my phone, and pulled up the feed. Infrared flickered to life, showing my east gate, the one 3 miles from any public road, deep on my private land. A white Ford Transit van was crawling down my dirt road like it owned the place. No license plates, just a blue decal on the side. Community Inspection Patrol. Not sheriff, not county, not invited. I watched 3 men step out, cheap tactical vests, cargo pants, clipboards looking like they'd just come off a weekend militia cosplay. One wore sunglasses. At 5, 14 inches the morning, in pitch black. Another was already photographing my barn like it owed him back taxes. The third carried a clipboard and walked with the confidence of idiots or people who think they're untouchable. I swung my legs over the bed, pulled on boots over bare feet, grabbed my Glock 19 and radio. 15 years on this land. 15 years of peace. And now some fake patrol was rolling up at dawn with cameras and attitudes. I fired up the ATV and headed straight for them. As I crested the hill, my floodlights kicked on automatically, washing them in pale yellow. They didn't even flinch. That pissed me off more than anything. You walk onto a stranger's 640-acre ranch before sunrise and don't look startled? That's either supreme confidence or supreme stupidity. I killed the engine 20 feet away. "Morning," I said, voice even. "Y'all mind telling me what the hell you're doing on private land?" Clipboard stepped forward. Tall guy, mid-40 seconds, shaved head for intimidation, but forgot he wasn't 6'5". Officer Nelson, Community Inspection Patrol. "We're here to assess code compliance with neighborhood ordinances." I blinked. "Neighborhood ordinances? Son, the nearest HOA is 3 miles that way. This is unincorporated Brewster County land. I'm not under any jurisdiction but Texas law and the Lord Almighty. This fence," he gestured at my wooden perimeter, "obstructs visual clearance for emergency responders. Your livestock enclosure lacks proper secondary containment. Those dogs might constitute a threat under community safety statutes." My 2 retired canine seconds, Duke and Ranger, sat perfectly still beside my ATV, watching these clowns with more discipline than half the Marines I'd served with. I pulled out my gate remote and tapped a button. The steel front gate, custom-built, solar-powered, heavy as hell, slid closed behind them with a satisfying CA shunk. 30 seconds, I said. "Get back in that van and roll your asses out. But first, tell me which agency sent you and why you think you're entitled to violate the 4th Amendment on a Tuesday morning." They didn't move. Sunglasses muttered into a walkie-talkie. I keyed my radio to Sheriff Daniels' personal line. "Dan, it's Hayward. Got unknowns on the property. 3 men, marked van, no ID, locked inside my gate. Copy. Stay calm. We're rolling. 20 minutes. I didn't wait. I backed my ATV to the shed, hooked up the winch cable, and rolled straight back to their white van. The men started shouting, but didn't touch me smart, considering Duke and Ranger had moved into flanking positions like they were born for it. I wrapped steel cable around the front axle and hit the motor. My winch yanked that van sideways, tires squealing against gravel, dragging it 50 yards straight into my barn hangar. Locked the doors. Iron bolt. Done. Sunglasses was screaming about illegally impounding a municipal vehicle. I walked back, camera drone buzzing overhead, catching every second. There's nothing municipal about you. And unless you've got badges and warrants, you're just trespassers with stickers. When Sheriff Daniels pulled up 20 minutes later, lights off, engine rumbling, it was like watching a teacher walk into a schoolyard fight. Deputy stepped out, hand near holster. "Names and IDs, gentlemen." Clipboard hesitated. Sunglasses stayed silent. Third guy finally stammered out a driver's license. No badges, no permits, not even business cards. Dan stepped over, murmured, "They ain't on any registry. One matches a name flagged in a security impersonation case from last year." I nodded. Thought so. Then came the cherry on top. A jet black Ram truck pulled up chrome-polished HOA decal on the rear window. Out stepped Brian Dallworth, president of Rio Vista Hills HOA, hair slicked back, white button-up, sunglasses bigger than his henchman's. "Mr. Hayward," he called out, smile fake enough to peel paint. "This is just a misunderstanding. Our patrol team was conducting a neighborly inspection under Regional Community Improvement Protocol. We have a memorandum with the county." Dan looked at him like he'd coughed in church. "You have that memo?" Brian handed over a laminated document. Dan squinted at the signature line and whistled. "This signature is from a man who retired 4 years ago. Nice try, Brian." Brian's smile faded. I stood silent, arms crossed, cameras recording everything. My gate stayed locked. And Brian Dallworth, in his $100,000 pickup on a brisk Texas morning, started sweating. "My name is Jack Hayward. I'm 52 years old. Former Marine Corps infantry, served 2 tours in Fallujah, came home in 2009, and bought 640 acres of West Texas scrubland that nobody wanted. Spent 15 years turning it into something. Cattle, hay, a shooting range, solar power, rain catchment systems, complete independence, no HOA, no neighbors close enough to complain, no bullshit. Until now. The sheriff's report came through the county portal that afternoon. Trespassing, impersonation, no valid permits, recommendation for further review of Rio Vista Hills HOA's patrol. But by noon the next day, the counterattack hit. Certified letter from Rio Vista Hills HOA's general counsel accusing ME of unlawful detention of property, false imprisonment, violent threat to unarmed civic personnel. They'd filed a complaint with the county prosecutor. I laughed. Actually laughed. Then I scanned it and sent copies to my attorney and insurance agent. Then I called Vince. Vincent Torres met him in Fallujah, 2007. Best damn scout in our platoon. Now he runs a private investigation firm in El Paso. "I'll have boots on the ground by weekend," Vince said. "You want quiet observation or full pressure? Start quiet. Let's see how deep this termite nest goes." By that evening, I had security footage uploaded to 3 cloud drives and my insurance claim system. I spent 2 hours documenting damage. Scratches on my gate where one of their guys had used a metal tool, tire marks through my cattle pasture, and Sarge, 8-week-old calf, caught between their van's tire and a water trough when they'd driven off-road without permission. Limping ever since. My vet put the damage at $18,000. Tendon bruising, infection risk, long-term treatment. Sarge was part of my fall breeding stock. Now he was evidence. My insurance agent, Karen, the good kind, practically growled through the phone. "We're filing subrogation against their insurer. You just opened a 6-figure door, Mr. Hayward." "Good," I said. They opened my gate without asking. Time they paid to close it. But that night, sitting on my porch watching dusk settle over the ridgeline, I felt something I hadn't felt since Fallujah. The certainty that this was bigger than one incident. That someone was planning something, and I was standing in the way. The next morning, my neighbor Kenny Morgan called. Lives a mile out. Raises alpacas. Good guy. Jack, same van, same 3 guys. They were on my property yesterday taking pictures of my greenhouse. Didn't ask permission, didn't identify themselves, just measured things and left. I called Vince immediately. "Not just you," he confirmed. "I've got reports from 2 other ranches. Same MO. They're making rounds. Find out why." Vince called back 6 hours later. Got audio from outside the HOA clubhouse. Brian held a closed-door meeting yesterday. Direct quote, "If we let this guy keep resisting, the others will do the same. This isn't about rules. It's about leverage. That land's worth 7 figures if we flip it. 7 figures. My land. My 640 acres. Worth $7 million to the right buyer. This wasn't about fences or codes. This was about money. Control. A land grab dressed up in clipboards and fake authority. And I'd just become their public example. What else?" I asked. They circulated an internal memo to HOA members. warning about a hostile landholder exhibiting violent and erratic behavior. That's you. Document includes a still of you hauling their van with the winch. They're building a narrative. To do what? Paint you as a threat, push it far enough, maybe the prosecutor bites. Or better yet, for them, insurance companies freeze you out. I sat back in my chair, feeling strategy crystallize. They thought I'd roll over. Thought a few threats and fake documents would make me sell. They picked the wrong damn ranch. I called Angela Martinez next. Independent journalist, runs a scrappy investigative channel, doesn't pull punches. I handed her every second of footage, every legal paper, every still frame of the fake patrol. She interviewed me on camera, no filter, no editing. I wore a clean shirt and sat with Sarge in the background, his leg wrapped, just chewing hay like it was the most peaceful day on earth. Angela published within 24 hours. The piece exploded, 200,000 views in the first day. Farmers, ranchers, property owners across Texas flooded the comments. Turns out, I wasn't the only one getting HOA visits. Brian must have felt the pressure because by that weekend, his legal team went full offense. Another notice, claiming I was operating an unlicensed animal breeding operation and my fencing violated aesthetic environmental continuity standards. They cited zoning regulations that didn't even apply to my Damstis district, swinging blind. Meanwhile, Vince compiled 4 instances of their patrol entering private land without consent, all on camera. Then he found gold. An assistant accountant in the HOA finance office leaked a spreadsheet. $86,000 paid to Tricor Consulting, the firm that had trained the patrol. I looked up Tricor, owner Brian Dalworth's brother-in-law. I exhaled through my nose. They weren't just trying to scare me off. They were building a shadow enforcement structure funded by HOA dues, and my land was the keystone. But they'd made a mistake. They thought I'd quit. Instead, I loaded another round of evidence, drafted affidavits, and prepared for war. The real blow came Monday morning. A call from a clerk in Brewster County Appraisal District guy I'd gone turkey hunting with once. "You need to see this." He emailed a PDF of the updated GIS zoning map. My jaw set before I even opened it. When I did, I damn near dropped my coffee. My land, 640 acres, was now partially outlined in soft green shading, HOA compliance review zone. My ranch, which had existed since before Rio Vista Hills was even a sketch on paper, was now magically under an HOA review zone. I called him back. Who updated this? Third-party consultant, Stratwell Urban Group. They filed the mapping revision with County GIS under contract with Rio Vista Hills HOA. Stratwell Urban Group. I'd never heard of them. Vince sent me a dossier 10 minutes later. Real estate development firm. Austin-based. 3 master plan communities in 5 years. Their latest project, Vista Arroyo. Luxury ranch-style community nestled between rolling West Texas plains, ready for conversion. Only one problem. That land was mine. It was all coming into focus. The patrol wasn't about codes. The memo wasn't cooperation. This was invasion wrapped in legalese. They were trying to redraw borders without ever going to court. I drove to Alpine to see my attorney, Lily Owens. Sharp, fast, doesn't blink unless someone's dying. I dropped the GIS map and Vince's dossier on her desk. "Holy hell," she muttered. "They're trying to zone you out of your own property." She filed an injunction immediately, freeze GIS updates, request forensic audit of the mapping package, formal complaint alleging unauthorized cartographic manipulation. That night, I reviewed Stratwell's project brochure. Page 7. Expected Phase C land acquisition through third-party negotiation and regional alignment efforts. Phase C. Vince found an investor pitch deck. My property outlined in red. Projected acquisition target. They were planning to buy me out, zone me in, or pressure me off. That explained everything. The patrol, the smear campaign, the fake documents. I wasn't a nuisance, I was a target, and they just declared war on the wrong Marine. But Brian wasn't done. Within days, the attacks escalated from legal pressure to character assassination. First, complaint to Texas Parks and Wildlife claiming I was hosting unlicensed guided hunts. I'd held a valid guiding permit for a decade. Records clean. Logs updated. Still meant someone with reach was pulling strings inside state agencies. Then, the Facebook campaign. Kenny called late one night. "You seen what they're saying about you online?" I hadn't. Don't waste time with digital rumor mills. But I looked. Anonymous posts in local groups. Is this rancher safe? Who really owns that military-style compound? Pictures of my gates, my dogs, my shooting range blurry, cherry-picked to make me look like a doomsday prepper. They labeled me the Brewster Bunker Man. That same day, someone filed with the fire marshal claiming my diesel generators posed public fire risk. 2 inspectors showed up polite, apologetic. Honestly, we know what this is. We've had 2 other complaints this week. Same language, same formatting. It was a campaign. Paper cuts aimed at bleeding me out. Then Vince intercepted an email internal HOA correspondence leaked to Angela. From Stratwell's PR consultant advising Brian on reputational containment, frame the subject as aggressive and unpredictable. Build consensus of fear among nearby landowners. Erode. Public sympathy. Strategic. Calculated. Disgusting. So, I changed the game. Released a new video. Me standing with the original county map beside the altered version. See this line? That's where my land ends. And this, I pointed at the green zone. This is where their greed begins. Then I showed the $86,000 spreadsheet, Tri-Core payments, Brian's brother-in-law, and Vince's drone footage. Their patrol trespassing on another ranch, laser measuring fence lines like they were doing recon. The comments were brutal. People connected the dots. HOA expansion, land reclassification, developer pressure, all dressed up in khakis and community spirit. I reached out to Texas Association of Landowners. Their legal team reviewed everything and offered amicus brief support. Then, something unexpected happened. 2 residents from inside Rio Vista Hills contacted me anonymously. Both had attended a closed meeting where Brian allegedly said, "We either absorb Hayward or remove him from the equation. That land is the linchpin." They were scared. Said they never signed up for this. Thought HOA was about lawns, not hostile takeovers. That night, standing on my porch watching dusk settle, Sarge lying nearby, chewing cud limp, barely noticeable, now I realized something. I wasn't just protecting my land. I was protecting the idea that your land means something. That it's not just a checkbox on some investor's spreadsheet. And if that meant war, well, I'd seen worse than spreadsheets and fake patrols. Let them come. But the worst blow came 3 days later. I was in my barn office when Kenny called, voice tight. "Jack, they got to me. HOA sent a letter. Said, if I cooperate with your campaign against community improvement, they'll file violations against my property. Zoning, septic, everything." Kenny, I'm sorry, man. I can't fight them. I don't have your resources. I got kids. A mortgage. He hung up. I sat there staring at my phone. They'd just isolated me from my neighbors, turned potential allies into scared bystanders. For the first time since this started, I felt genuine doubt. What if I was wrong? What if they really did have connections deep enough to bury me? What if fighting cost everything and I still lost? My ranch, my independence, everything I'd built. I walked outside, sat on the porch steps, and for maybe 10 minutes, I let myself consider it. Selling. Walking away. Taking whatever they offered and starting over somewhere else. Then Duke nudged my hand with his nose. Looked at me with those steady K9 eyes that had seen worse than HOA thugs. And I remembered Fallujah, 2007. Pinned down in a bombed-out building with Vince and 4 other Marines. Vince had looked at me and said, "We don't quit. Not on each other. Not on the mission. Not ever. We'd made it out. All of us. Because we didn't quit." I stood up, walked back inside, and called Lily. "File everything. Full offense. I'm done playing defense. You sure? This could get expensive. Ugly. I'm sure, because if I don't fight, they'll do this to someone else. And that someone might not be able to fight back. All right, let's bury them. The courthouse was cold as a banker's heart when we walked in. 105 degrees outside, ice cold inside. Lily was calm. She'd filed our counterclaims 2 weeks earlier. Trespassing, attempted extortion, fraudulent misrepresentation, unauthorized property use. But today was their complaint against M.E. Unlawful detention, hostile escalation, threatening conduct. Brian sat smug in a new suit, expensive watch barely hidden under his cuff. His lawyer started smooth claimed their community inspection patrol was acting under mutual aid agreement with Brewster County, that I'd interfered with lawful safety operations. Judge Martinez, stout woman, thick glasses, zero tolerance for bullshit, cut in. Do you have a copy of this agreement? Brian's attorney beamed, produced the laminated memo. Judge took it, squinted, frowned. This signature belongs to a county inspector who retired in 2019. This memo is dated 2023. Do you have a newer version? A ratified one? That's the version we were provided. Who provided it? Mr. Dalworth. On behalf of the HOA. Silence. The judge looked over her glasses. So your entire complaint rests on falsified documentation. Brian's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Lily stood. Your Honor, I'd like to request dismissal of all HOA claims due to false documentation and submit a motion to initiate perjury review against the filing party. Motion granted. We'll proceed with Mr. Hayward's countersuit. The lights went out behind Brian's eyes, but that was just round one. That afternoon, Lily called Vince to the stand. He laid out credentials, then showed drone footage, patrol entering properties, laser measuring fences, tagging trees with pink ribbon. Then the kicker, audio recording from the HOA clubhouse obtained with legal warrant. Brian's voice, we're not enforcing codes. We're establishing leverage. Hayward's land is worth 7 figures to the right buyer. If he won't play ball, we'll freeze him out. Silence. Then, Lily calmly submitted HOA financial reports, $86,000 to Tricor Consulting, connected via incorporation records to Brian's brother-in-law. Judge turned slowly to Brian. Mr. Dalworth, were HOA funds used to establish a private enforcement group with no legal authority? We believed we were operating under discretionary bylaws. Did HOA members approve these expenditures? Long pause. No, Your Honor. The executive board managed it internally. Thank you. The judge authorized forensic audit of HOA finances and referred the case to the district attorney for potential fraud. By end of day, 3 HOA board members had resigned. My phone buzzed with texts from strangers. Thank you. They've been doing this for years. We were scared. Brian left without a word, just disappeared into his black truck. And I stood outside, hands in pockets, looking past the courthouse toward the hills. For the first time in weeks, I felt the ground shifting, not under my feet, under theirs. News travels fast in small counties. Within 72 hours, Rio Vista Hills went from smug to scrambling. Angela's article hit statewide. Fake patrol, fake map, real lawsuit. Local radio called Brian, the HOA Napoleon. But underneath the laughs, the ground was cracking. Stratwell Urban Group suddenly pulled Vista Arroyo from the county agenda. No press release, just cancellation. 3 investors jumped ship overnight. My insurance company filed subrogation claim against the HOA's insurer for $186,000. 3 other landowners joined the suit. The HOA board hemorrhaged members. Residents called emergency meeting. Kenny asked me to come. I showed up in jeans and clean button down. No lawyer, just a flash drive. Plugged it in. Showed everything. Drone footage, injured calf, doctored maps, payment logs, Brian's quote about absorbing or removing me. Silence. Then an older woman stood. I move. We dissolve the current board effective immediately. Seconded. Voted. Passed. Over 70%. Brian didn't show. He'd already been subpoenaed. The next morning, back on the ranch, Vince texted, "Farmgate terminated HOA's liability policy. Too risky. HOA bankrupt. Stratwell under investigation. Brian fucked. And me? Still standing? Still armed? Still owning every inch." 2 months later, Brian Dalworth stood in county court in shackles and orange jumpsuit. 3 felony counts: document forgery, misappropriation of funds, criminal impersonation by proxy. Bail denied. I didn't smirk. Okay, I did. Once. I received full settlement. $210,000 wired to my ranch account. Sarge is fine. Slower, but kicking. I renamed him Exhibit A. The new interim HOA board banned community patrols permanently and redefined boundaries to exclude neighboring properties. County Commissioner required external GIS audits going forward. I hung that statement in my barn, and I added new perimeter signs. Approaching with an HOA decal will be interpreted as legal consent to a civil suit and a tow chain to the nearest cattle shed. Now I host seminars for ranchers and landowners. Vince calls in remote. Angela records. One hit, 500,000 views. I never planned to be the guy teaching people how to fight wars with lawyers and drones, but here we are. Still got all 640 acres. Unbothered, untouchable, unbought. And as long as I'm breathing, not one damn HOA patrol is coming up this dirt road again. The end. The morning after the first patrol incident, I was up before dawn doing what I always do. Checking fence lines, feeding cattle, making sure the solar panels were clean. Routine. Peace. The kind of quiet you earn by living 3 miles from your nearest neighbor. But my phone kept buzzing. Text from Kenny. "Jack, you okay? Heard something went down at your place?" Text from another rancher I barely knew. "Same van showed up at my property yesterday. Didn't enter, but took photos from the road. You know anything?" Then a call from Dan, the sheriff. "Jack, got something you need to hear. Ran those IDs from yesterday. 2 of the 3 have priors. Nothing major, trespassing, impersonation of officials. 3rd guy's clean. Probably just hired muscle. But here's the kicker. All 3 were contracted through a company called Tricor Security Consulting 6 months ago. Ring any bells? No. Should it? Might want to look into it. Address listed as a P.O. box in El Paso. No physical office. No business license on file with the state." After I hung up, I pulled up Tricor on my laptop. Website looked professional enough. Sleek design, stock photos of security guards, vague language about community safety solutions, and regional compliance enforcement. But no client list. No staff directory. No actual information. Just a contact form that probably went nowhere. I forwarded it all to Vince. His reply came back within an hour. Ghost company. Probably a front. Digging deeper. That afternoon, while I was repairing a section of cattle fence that Sarge, my injured calf, had managed to stumble through, a silver Audi pulled up to my front gate. Woman in her 40 seconds. Blazer. Briefcase. Professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. I walked over, wiping grease off my hands. "Can I help you?" "Mr. Hayward, I'm Catherine Reeves, legal counsel for Rio Vista Hills Homeowners Association. I'm here to discuss yesterday's incident." "You mean the part where your fake patrol trespassed on my land at dawn with no legal authority?" Her smile tightened. "There seems to be a misunderstanding. The patrol was operating under a regional mutual aid framework that framework is based on a forged document with a signature from a retired county official. Sheriff confirmed it yesterday. So unless you've got something new to say, you're wasting both our time." She pulled a folder from her briefcase. "Mr. Hayward, the HOA is prepared to offer a settlement. Dismiss any potential legal claims, and we'll compensate you $15,000 for your inconvenience. $15,000. For trespassing, property damage, injuring my livestock, and committing fraud." I almost laughed. "Tell Brian Dalworth he can take his 15 grand and choke on it." "I'll see him in court." Catherine's expression went cold. "You're making a mistake, Mr. Hayward. The HOA has significant resources and legal standing that no ma'am What you have is a fake enforcement team, a fraudulent memo, and a very expensive lawsuit headed your way. Now get off my property before I add harassment to the list." She left without another word. But as I watched that silver Audi disappear down my road, I felt something shift. They weren't trying to scare me anymore. They were trying to buy me off, which meant they were scared. That night, Vince called with an update that made my blood run cold. Found something. Tricor isn't just a ghost company, it's a subsidiary of Stratwell Urban Group, and Stratwell has been quietly buying up land parcels around Rio Vista Hills for the past 3 years. How much land? Over 2,000 acres. All purchased through LLCs with names like West Texas Land Trust and Arroyo Development Partners. But if you trace the incorporation paperwork, they all lead back to Stratwell. What are they building? That's the thing, they're not building yet. They're acquiring. My contact says it's a land banking scheme. Buy cheap rural land, wait for zoning changes or development pressure, then flip it to builders at massive markup. And my 640 acres? Right in the middle of their target zone. If they can get your land, they control access to water rights, county road easements, and 3 different utility corridors. Without your property, their whole development plan has a giant hole in it. I sat back, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't about HOA rules or code enforcement. This was a $7 million real estate play, and I was the only thing standing in the way. What's their next move? I asked. Pressure. They'll try to make your life hell until you either sell or get forced out through legal costs. Seen it before in Arizona, Colorado, even parts of California. HOAs partnering with developers to squeeze out non-member landowners. How do I fight it? Same way we fought in Fallujah. Gather intel, control the narrative, don't give them an inch. And Jack, watch your back. People playing for 7 figures don't always play clean. After I hung up, I walked outside and stood on my porch, looking at the dark expanse of my land. 15 years I'd been here. 15 years of peace, independence, building something that was mine. And now some developer in Austin wanted to erase it, for profit, over my dead body. The smear campaign started 2 days later. I was in Alpine, picking up feed when I noticed people staring. At the hardware store, the clerk guy I'd known for years barely made eye contact. At the diner, conversation stopped when I walked in. Finally, at the feed store, the owner pulled me aside. "Jack, I don't believe a word of it, but people are talking, saying you threatened those HOA inspectors, that you're unstable, running some kind of compound out there." "What?" He showed me his phone. Facebook group, Brewster County Community Watch. Post from 3 days ago. Alert. Violent landowner threatens community safety officers. Jack Hayward of My Address detained lawful inspectors, brandished weapons, and made threats, known to operate military-style compound with guard dogs and firearms. Residents advised to avoid the area. Photo attached. Blurry shot of me hauling their van with my winch, Duke and Ranger in the frame looking like attack dogs instead of the gentle retirees they were. Comments flooded below. "This guy's dangerous. Someone needs to do something." I drove past his place once. Looked like a militia training camp. Why isn't the sheriff doing anything? My jaw clenched so hard I thought I'd crack a tooth. They were painting me as a violent extremist, turning my neighbors against me, building a narrative that I was the threat, not them. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to Lily. Her response: "This is defamation, clear and actionable. We're adding it to the suit." Also, Angela just called. Wants to do a follow-up piece. I think you should do it. That night, Angela drove out with her cameraman. We sat on my porch, Sarge lying nearby in the grass, Duke and Ranger at my feet. She asked the hard questions. I gave honest answers. People are calling you dangerous, saying you threatened violence. What do you say to that? I say they're lying. I detained trespassers on my property and called the sheriff. That's not violence, that's law enforcement. And if protecting what's mine makes me dangerous, then yeah, I'm dangerous. What about the guns? I'm a Marine veteran living on 640 acres in rural Texas. Of course I have guns, but I've never pointed one at anyone who wasn't actively threatening my life, and I never will. Why do you think they're doing this? I pulled out the GIS map, showed the camera the green zone overlaying my property, because I'm standing in the way of a $7 million land deal, and they're willing to destroy my reputation, file false complaints, and turn my neighbors against me to get what they want. Angela's piece went live the next morning. Within 6 hours, 400,000 views. The comments shifted. This is what HOAs do. They're out of control. I live in Brewster County. I know Jack Hayward. He's not violent. He's being targeted. This needs to be investigated. Where's the DA? But the damage was done. Kenny still wouldn't talk to me. 2 other neighbors stopped returning calls. The feed store owner said his distributor had received complaints about doing business with me. Someone had filed a report with Texas Department of Agriculture claiming I was running an unlicensed commercial cattle operation. Another complaint to the fire marshal about my diesel generators. I was bleeding from 1,000 paper cuts, and Brian Dalworth was holding the blade. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I was fixing a water line when my phone rang. Number I didn't recognize. Mr. Hayward? This is Laura Chen from Brewster County Appraisal District. I'm calling about a zoning concern that's been flagged on your property. My stomach dropped. What kind of concern? According to our updated GIS records, a portion of your land now falls within an HOA compliance review zone. Under County Ordinance 47B, properties in review zones are subject to enhanced building code enforcement and may require additional permits for livestock operations, structures, and stop. Who updated those GIS records? Third-party consulting firm, Stratwell Urban Group. They filed the revision 2 weeks ago under contract with Rio Vista Hills HOA. My property isn't in the HOA. According to the new map, portions of it are adjacent to HOA-controlled easements, which under regional development guidelines, this is fraud. Someone is redrawing my property lines without authorization. Sir, I'm just reading what's in the system. If you believe there's an error, you'll need to file a formal dispute with I hung up. Sat there staring at my phone. They'd actually done it. Changed the county map to make it look like my land fell under HOA jurisdiction. It was brilliant, evil, and probably illegal, but unless I could prove it was fraud, I'd spend years fighting it in court while they bled me dry with compliance fees and legal costs. I called Lily. They changed the map, made my property look like it's in an HOA zone. Silence. Then, Jack, that's beyond aggressive. That's criminal. Can we fight it? Yes, but it'll take time. Months, maybe longer. We'll need to prove the map was altered fraudulently, which means forensic GIS analysis, expert testimony. How much? Conservatively, $50,000 just to start that fight. I had maybe $40,000 in savings. My cattle operation brought in $60,000 a year on good years. If Brian's lawyers dragged this out long enough, I'd go bankrupt before I ever saw a courtroom. That night, I sat on my porch steps with Duke beside me, staring at the ridge line where the sun was setting in streaks of orange and purple. For the first time since this started, I let myself really feel the weight. Maybe I couldn't win. Maybe they really did have too much money, too many connections, too much institutional power. Maybe fighting would cost me everything and I'd still lose. Maybe the smart move was to sell, take whatever they offered, start over somewhere else. Duke nudged my hand with his nose, looked at me with those steady eyes. And I thought about Fallujah 2007. Pinned down in a half-collapsed building. Insurgents on 3 sides. Ammo running low. Vince was bleeding from a leg wound. Martinez had taken shrapnel to the shoulder. We'd been holding that position for 4 hours waiting for evac that kept getting pushed back. We're fucked, Martinez had said. They're gonna overrun us. I'd looked at Vince. He'd looked at me. And Vince had said the words that kept us alive. We don't quit. Not on each other. Not on the mission. Not ever. We hold until evac gets here or we run out of bullets. But we don't. Fucking quit. We'd held. Evac came 20 minutes later. All 6 of us made it out alive because we didn't quit. I stood up, walked inside, and called Lily. File everything. Full offense. Forensic GIS audit. Fraud charges, defamation, the works. I don't care what it costs. Jack, are you sure? I'm sure, because if I quit, they do this to someone else, and that someone might not be able to fight back. So, yeah, I'm sure. Long pause. Then, all right, let's bury these bastards. I hung up, looked at Duke and Ranger, and felt something settle. This was going to hurt. It was going to cost everything. But I'd been through worse, and I'd be damned if I let some real estate developer with a clipboard and a fake map take what was mine. The trial opened on an October morning that felt like God was turning up the heat just to watch us sweat 105 degrees outside. Inside the courthouse, air conditioning cranked so cold you could see your breath. Lily was calm as ever, organized, ready. Brian sat across the aisle in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly cattle feed budget. His attorney, slick guy from Austin, probably $500 an hour, opened with smooth corporate speak about regional development cooperation and mutual benefit frameworks. Judge Martinez cut him off within 30 seconds. Counselor, I've reviewed the preliminary filings. Your client's mutual aid agreement is based on a document with a forged signature. Do you have anything legitimate to present? Or are we wasting the court's time? The attorney hesitated, looked at Brian, looked back at the judge. Your Honor, we'd like to request a continuance to denied. Present your case or withdraw. It went downhill from there. Lily called witnesses systematically, methodically, like she was building a house brick by brick. Sheriff Daniels testified about the fake patrol, the invalid permits, the criminal background checks on 2 of the 3 inspectors. My vet testified about Sarge's injuries, the $18,000 in treatment costs, the permanent damage to breeding stock value. The county GIS clerk testified about how Stratwell had submitted the map revision without proper authorization or landowner notification. Then Vince took the stand. He presented drone footage showing the patrol on 3 different properties. Audio recordings from the HOA clubhouse where Brian explicitly said, "We either absorb Hayward or remove him. That land is the linchpin." Financial records showing $86,000 paid to Tricor Consulting Brian's brother-in-law's company for security services that consisted of trespassing and harassment. The courtroom went silent. Brian's attorney tried to object, claimed the evidence was obtained illegally. Judge Martinez shut him down. The warrant was valid. The evidence is admissible. Continue, Miss Owens. Then Lily dropped the hammer. Investor pitch deck from Stratwell showing my property outlined in red as Phase C acquisition target. Projected value, $7.2 million. She let that number sit for a moment. Then, Your Honor, this isn't an HOA dispute. This is attempted theft through administrative fraud. Mr. Dallworth and his partners tried to steal my client's land by redrawing maps, filing false complaints, and running a campaign of intimidation designed to force him out or bankrupt him through legal costs. Judge Martinez looked at Brian like he'd brought garbage to church. Mr. Dallworth, did you or did you not use HOA funds to establish a private enforcement group with no legal authority? Brian opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. We believed we were acting within our discretionary authority as, that's not what I asked. Did HOA members approve these expenditures? The executive board managed it internally without, so that's a no. Thank you. She turned to the court clerk. This court authorizes an immediate forensic audit of Rio Vista Hills HOA finances and refers this matter to the district attorney for investigation of potential fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit theft. 3 HOA board members stood up and walked out before she'd even finished speaking. By the time the gavel came down, Brian's empire was in ashes. And I sat there, hands folded, watching justice do exactly what it was supposed to do. The aftermath moved fast. Within a week, Stratwell pulled Vista Arroyo from county development plans. Investors bailed. The HOA's insurance company, Farmgate Mutual, terminated their policy, citing fraud and criminal misconduct by insured parties. My insurance filed subrogation, $186,000 in damages. 3 other landowners joined the suit. Rio Vista Hills residents called emergency meeting, voted to dissolve the current board 73-12, and Brian, 2 months later, he stood in county court wearing shackles and an orange jumpsuit. 3 felony counts: document forgery, misappropriation of funds, criminal impersonation by proxy. The prosecutor called him a repeat manipulator of civil structures for personal gain. I just called him an idiot with a clipboard and a god complex. The DA's investigation expanded statewide. 5 other HOA-affiliated land grabs under review. Vince testified before a special zoning ethics board. Angela got invited on major news network, wore boots and denim jacket. Said it was tribute to the rancher who dragged a patrol van with a tow chain and a smile. I didn't smile. Okay, I did. Once. Settlement came through. $210,000 wired to my ranch account. Vet bills covered. Sarge, fine slower, but kicking. I renamed him Exhibit A. One of the HOA whistleblowers, guy named Paul, stopped by with his fiancée. Brought pie, said thanks. New interim board banned patrols permanently and redefined boundaries to exclude all neighboring properties. County Commissioner issued public statement. External GIS audits required going forward. I hung it in my barn. And I added new signs to my perimeter. Approaching within Ho Decal will be interpreted as legal consent to a civil suit and a tow chain to the nearest cattle shed. Decorative, but not entirely a joke. Now I host seminars for ranchers, landowners, even suburban homeowners. Vince calls in remote. Angela records. One session hit 500,000 views. I never planned to be the guy teaching people how to fight wars with lawyers and drones, but here we are. Still got all 640 acres. Unbothered. Untouchable. Unbought. And as long as I'm breathing, not one damn HOA patrol is coming up this dirt road again. The absolute end. 6 months after the trial, I was sitting on my porch watching Duke and Ranger chase rabbits across the south pasture. Well, chase is generous. Duke's too old for actual running. Ranger pretends he can't see them. The ranch felt different now. Lighter. Like a weight I'd been carrying for months had finally lifted. My phone rang. Vince. You see the news? What news? Stratwell Urban Group just filed for bankruptcy. Turns out the Vista Arroyo project was their entire capital investment strategy. When it collapsed, so did their financing. CEO resigned yesterday. Board's being investigated for securities fraud. I leaned back in my chair. Good. Better than good. 3 other developers pulled out of similar HOA land grab schemes in Colorado and Arizona. Your case set precedent. Lawyers are citing it as Hayward v. Rio Vista in property rights litigation across 5 states. After I hung up, I walked down to the barn where Sarge was chewing hay in his stall. He looked up at me with those big brown eyes, barely limping anymore. You did good, buddy, I said, scratching behind his ears. You and your $18,000 tendon injury just changed property law in half the country. That afternoon, a truck pulled up to my gate. Young couple, early 30 seconds, nervous smiles. I walked over. Help you, Mr. Hayward? I'm Michael Torres. This is my wife, Sarah. We just bought the property 2 miles east. Kenny Morgan's old place. Kenny had sold 6 months ago, moved to Arizona. Said he couldn't handle the stress anymore. Welcome to the neighborhood. We heard what you did, standing up to the HOA. We wanted to thank you. We almost didn't buy because we were scared of getting targeted like you were. Sarah held out a pie. Homemade. Apple. It's not much, but it's plenty. Thank you. After they left, I sat on the porch with that pie and thought about everything that had happened. The fake patrol at 5:14 a.m. that started it all. Brian Dallworth's smug face in his $100,000 truck. The GIS map that tried to erase my property lines. The moment I almost quit. And Vince's voice from Fallujah, we don't quit, not ever. I'd fought. I'd won. And in the process, I'd protected not just my land, but the principle that your property actually means something in this country. That some developer with a slick pitch deck and a corrupt HOA can't just redraw your borders because you're in the way of their profit margin. That evening, I hosted one of my seminars in the barn. 15 ranchers and landowners from across West Texas, even a few from New Mexico. I showed them the security footage, the legal documents, the playbook Brian and Stratwell had used. They'll tell you it's about codes and safety, I said. They'll wave clipboards and fake authority, but it's always about money and control. And if you don't fight, if you think you can just keep your head down and they'll leave you alone, you're wrong. Because people like Brian Dalworth see weakness as invitation. An older rancher raised his hand. What if we can't afford the legal fight? Not everyone's got your resources. I didn't have resources. I had a lawyer who believed in the case and worked on contingency. I had a PI who owed me a favor. I had security cameras I'd installed years ago for livestock protection. And I had the willingness to risk everything because the alternative was losing everything anyway. What about the community turning against you? The smear campaign? That's the hardest part, I admitted. Watching neighbors you thought you knew believe lies about you. But here's the thing. The truth always comes out. It just takes time. And if you're telling the truth, if you've got evidence, if you're willing to stay calm and let them make the mistakes, they will make mistakes. People like Brian always do. After everyone left, I stood in the barn looking at the sign I'd hung on the wall. The line that wouldn't move. Below it, a photo. My property deed. The original GIS map showing clear boundaries. And a framed screenshot of Brian in handcuffs being led into county jail. Vince had sent me that photo with a note. Some lines you don't cross. Some Marines you don't mess with. And some land you don't try to steal. I walked back to the house as the sun set over the ridge line, painting the sky in those deep Texas oranges and purples that make you understand why people fight for this land. Duke and Ranger fell in beside me, old canine seconds who'd stood their ground when fake patrols showed up at dawn. Sarge was in his pasture, healed now, strong enough to breed next season. My 640 acres stretched out in every direction, unbothered, untouchable, unbought. And somewhere in Austin, Brian Dalworth was learning what happens when you try to redraw someone else's property lines. When you try to erase someone's freedom with clipboards and fake documents. When you pick a fight with a Marine who learned in Fallujah that some things are worth defending to the last breath. I'd defended my line, and it hadn't moved an inch. That night, I got an email from Angela. Subject, news story? Jack, got a tip about HOA targeting veteran landowners in El Paso County. Similar pattern to your case. Interested in consulting? I looked at Duke. He looked at me. What do you think, boy? One more fight? Duke's tail thumped once against the floor. I hit reply. Send me the details. Because some fights you walk away from. And some fights you take to every bastard who thinks a title and a clipboard makes them king. This was the latter, and I was just getting started. The true end.